I came home early from a work trip to find my 10-year-old daughter hadn't eaten in days because my wife said she didn't deserve food if she talked back. When I checked our security cameras, I saw my wife eating huge meals while my daughter sat at the table with nothing. After I kicked her out and filed for divorce, I discovered she'd also stolen every penny from my daughter's $23,000 college fund. I found out that my wife only feeds my daughter once a day to discipline her. So I called my lawyer. I have been married to Lena for 3 years. I have a 10-year-old daughter, Mia, from my previous marriage. My ex-wife passed away when Mia was 6, so it's just been the two of us for a long time. When I met Lena, she seemed kind and supportive, and she said she wanted to be a mother figure to Mia. But after we got married, things changed. At first, it was small things. Lena would make comments about Mia's eating habits, saying things like, "Are you sure you need seconds?" Or, "You'll get chubby if you snack too much." I brushed it off, thinking Lena just cared about nutrition. Then she started throwing out Mia's favorite belongings, claiming she was too old for toys. When Mia made a drawing of our family, including her late mom, Lena ripped it up and said, "You need to stop living in the past. I'm your mom now." I yelled at Lena for that, but she brushed it off as a joke. Over time, Mia became quieter. She would hide in her room, avoid Lena, and cling to me whenever I was home. She even started sneaking extra snacks at night, saying she was really hungry. I thought it was just a growth spurt. About 2 weeks ago, I had to travel for work. When I got back, Mia looked noticeably thinner and more tired. I asked Lena if Mia had been eating well, and she said, "Of course she eats too much if anything." Last week, I unexpectedly left work early and came home around 1 p.m. I expected Mia to be having lunch, but she was curled up on the couch, pale and quiet. I asked if she had eaten, and she whispered, "No, Mom says I only get dinner because I don't deserve more food if I talk back." I was stunned. I asked her to explain, and through tears, she told me Lena regularly withheld food as punishment. Sometimes, she wouldn't get breakfast or lunch for days in a row, even when she hadn't done anything wrong. I confronted Lena immediately. She rolled her eyes and said Mia was being dramatic, and that she was just teaching her discipline. Mia sobbed, begging me to believe her. I didn't know what to do, but the next morning, I checked our security cameras. What I saw made my blood boil. Lena was preparing herself huge lunches and snacks, while Mia sat at the table with nothing. Worse, she threw away the snacks I packed for Mia's school bag. That was the last straw. I kicked Lena out that same day and called my lawyer to start divorce proceedings. I also contacted CPS to report what happened and to have everything documented. When Lena realized I was serious, she blew up my phone, calling me an abusive monster for throwing her out over a brat's lies. Her parents texted me too, saying I humiliated their daughter and that kids need discipline. But here's the twist. Because of the security footage, my lawyer immediately filed for a restraining order and full custody protections. 2 days later, Lena came to get her things. I had the cops waiting. They served her the restraining order on the spot. The most satisfying part? Last week, Lena tried to fight for spousal support in court. The judge watched the footage, looked her straight in the eye, and told her she was lucky I hadn't pressed criminal charges yet. Everything was finally starting to settle. Mia began smiling again. She even asked if we could adopt a dog someday. I thought the worst was behind us. Then, just yesterday, I found out that Lena transferred all of my daughter's funds in her name. My hands shook as I stared at the bank statement. The college fund I'd been building for Mia since she was born, every birthday gift from grandparents, every holiday check carefully deposited, gone. $23,000 transferred out just 3 days ago. The account name showed Lena as the authorized user, something I'd foolishly agreed to when we married. I grabbed my phone and called the bank immediately. The representative pulled up the account while I paced the kitchen, watching Mia through the window as she played in the backyard. She looked so happy now, finally eating regular meals, finally free from that woman's cruelty. The bank representative confirmed what I feared. Lena had used her authorization to transfer the entire balance to an account in her name only. Legal, they said. Nothing they could do without a court order. My jaw clenched as I thanked them and hung up. I texted my lawyer immediately with screenshots of the statements. He called back within minutes, his voice tight with anger on my behalf. He explained that while the restraining order prevented physical contact, it didn't freeze assets she'd already accessed. We'd need to file additional motions to recover the funds. That evening, I sat with Mia at dinner, trying to keep my expression neutral as she chatted about her day at school. She'd made a new friend, someone who invited her to a birthday party next week. Her eyes sparkled with excitement, the first real joy I'd seen in months. I couldn't let Lena steal this from her too. After tucking Mia in, I spent hours going through our financial records. Lena had been clever. She'd added herself to the account 2 years ago, claiming it would be easier to deposit birthday money from her side of the family. I'd trusted her. Now I discovered she'd been monitoring it, waiting for the right moment. The next morning, I drove to the lawyer's office while Mia was at school. We filed emergency motions to freeze any remaining joint assets and demand return of the stolen funds. My lawyer warned me it could take months, that Lena might have already spent the money. The thought made my stomach turn. On the drive home, my phone buzzed with texts from an unknown number, then another and another. I pulled over to check, my heart sinking as I read Lena's messages sent from a friend's phone. She claimed the money was rightfully hers, compensation for the trauma of being falsely accused. She threatened to tell everyone I was an abusive father who'd thrown out his innocent wife. I screenshot everything and forwarded it to my lawyer. Violating the restraining order through third-party contact was still a violation. We'd add it to our growing pile of evidence. That afternoon, I picked up Mia early from school for a dentist appointment. As we walked to the car, she grabbed my hand and squeezed it. She told me her teacher noticed she wasn't falling asleep in class anymore. The teacher had asked if everything was okay at home, and Mia had proudly announced that her dad was taking care of her now. At the dentist, they found 3 cavities. The hygienist frowned, noting signs of enamel erosion consistent with acid reflux, often caused by extended hunger. I held Mia's hand as they explained the treatment plan, fury building in my chest at what Lena had done to my little girl. That evening, Lena's mother showed up at our door. I saw her through the peephole and didn't answer, but she stood there ringing the bell for 10 minutes. Mia hid in her room, trembling. I called the police, who arrived just as she was leaving. They took my statement and said they'd add it to the restraining order violation report. Over the next few days, I noticed strange cars driving slowly past our house. The same sedan appeared 3 times one afternoon. I installed additional security cameras and made sure Mia's school knew about the restraining order. The principal assured me they had protocols in place. My lawyer called with mixed news. The emergency asset freeze was approved, but Lena had already withdrawn $15,000 in cash. The remaining $8,000 was locked in the account, but recovering what she'd taken would require proving it was specifically earmarked for Mia. I spent the weekend gathering evidence, every birthday card that mentioned college savings, every deposit slip with "For Mia's future" written in the memo line. My parents helped, sending copies of checks they'd written specifically for her education fund. The stack of papers grew thick. Mia noticed my stress. She made me a drawing of us at the beach, something we'd talked about doing this summer. At the bottom, she'd written, "Best dad ever," in careful letters. I hung it on the refrigerator, covering the spot where Lena's shopping list used to be. Monday brought a new challenge. Mia's school called to say someone had tried to pick her up, claiming to be her aunt. The woman had fled when asked for identification. My hands trembled as I raced to the school, finding Mia safe in the principal's office, coloring quietly. That night, I barely slept. Every sound made me jump. I checked the security cameras obsessively, seeing shadows that weren't there. Mia must have sensed my anxiety, because she crawled into my bed around midnight, curling against my side like she used to when she was tiny. The next day, my lawyer had more bad news. Lena had hired an attorney who was arguing that the money was a marital asset, not specifically Mia's. They claimed I had hidden assets and was trying to punish Lena for leaving. The audacity made my blood boil. I took time off work to focus on the legal battle. My boss was understanding, especially after I explained the situation. He even offered to write a character reference if needed. The support helped, but the stress was overwhelming. Lena's harassment escalated. Packages arrived at our door with no return address. Inside were photos of Lena and Mia from happier times. Lena's face circled in red marker. Notes claimed I was poisoning Mia against her real mother. I documented everything, adding to our evidence file. One afternoon, while organizing paperwork, I found Mia's baby book. Inside were photos of her mother, my first wife, holding infant Mia. The love in her eyes was unmistakable. She'd made me promise to protect our daughter always. I'd failed once by letting Lena into our lives. I wouldn't fail again. The bank finally provided complete transaction records. Lena had made multiple cash withdrawals, just under the reporting limit. She'd been planning this for weeks, maybe months. The premeditation was chilling. My lawyer filed additional motions, including criminal charges for theft and violation of fiduciary duty. He explained that while recovery might take time, we had a strong case. The security footage of her starving Mia while accessing her college fund painted a damning picture. Mia's recovery continued slowly. She still hoarded snacks in her room sometimes, and loud noises made her flinch. But she was gaining weight, smiling more, even laughing at silly jokes. Every sign of healing strengthened my resolve. The school counselor called to check in. She'd been meeting with Mia weekly, helping her process the trauma. She mentioned that Mia had asked if the money Lena took meant she couldn't go to college. The question broke my heart. I assured the counselor that I'd rebuild the fund no matter what. That evening, I sat down with our budget, calculating how much I could save monthly. It would take years to replace what Lena stole, but I'd do it. I'd work overtime, skip vacations, whatever it took. Mia deserved the future her mother and I had dreamed of for her. As I tucked her in that night, Mia asked if Lena would ever come back. I promised her she was safe, that the law was protecting us now. She nodded solemnly, then asked if we could still get that dog. I told her we'd visit the shelter that weekend, seeing her face light up for the first time in days. The legal process dragged on, each day bringing new challenges and small victories, but watching Mia slowly bloom back to life, seeing her trust that she'd have breakfast every morning, lunch every afternoon, dinner every night, made every battle worthwhile. Lena had stolen money, but she couldn't steal our future. Not anymore. The legal process dragged on, each day bringing new challenges and small victories, but watching Mia slowly bloom back to life, seeing her trust that she'd have breakfast every morning, lunch every afternoon, dinner every night, made every battle worthwhile. Lena had stolen money, but she couldn't steal our future. Not anymore. The following morning brought an unexpected development. My bank called to inform me that Lena had attempted to access our old joint checking account. The attempt failed because I'd already frozen it, but the timing worried me. She was getting desperate. I drove Mia to school, watching my mirrors more carefully than usual. The sedan from earlier in the week wasn't there, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. At the school entrance, I walked Mia inside personally, something I hadn't done since she was in kindergarten. The secretary smiled sympathetically, clearly aware of our situation. Back home, I found a certified letter waiting. My hands trembled as I opened it. Lena's lawyer had filed a counterclaim, alleging that I'd been hiding assets and demanding half of everything, including my retirement fund. The document went on for pages, painting me as a controlling spouse who'd manipulated the situation. My coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the kitchen floor. I spent the morning cleaning up the mess and calling my lawyer. He reassured me that her claims were baseless, but we'd need to provide extensive financial documentation to prove it. I pulled out years of tax returns, bank statements, investment records. The dining table disappeared under stacks of paper. Around noon, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Mia's school. My heart stopped. The principal's voice was calm, but concerned. Someone had called claiming to be from Child Services, asking detailed questions about Mia's home situation. The school had protocols in place and hadn't released any information, but they wanted me to know. I immediately called my lawyer again. He confirmed that no legitimate investigation was underway. This was Lena trying to find another angle. We added it to our documentation of harassment. That afternoon, while waiting to pick up Mia, I noticed a woman in the parking lot taking photos of my car. When I approached, she hurried away, but not before I recognized her as one of Lena's friends from her book club. I managed to photograph her license plate before she drove off. Mia came out of school with a bright smile, clutching an art project. She'd drawn our family, just the two of us, and a hypothetical dog. No trace of Lena in the picture. Her teacher had written, "Beautiful work," at the top. I carefully placed it in the car, another reminder of what I was fighting for. At home, I found more packages on the doorstep. This time, they contained printed emails, supposedly from me to Lena, full of threats and abuse. Complete fabrications, but sophisticated ones. The headers looked authentic at first glance. My lawyer would need to see these immediately. While Mia did homework at the kitchen table, I made dinner and tried to maintain normalcy. She chatted about her day, excited about an upcoming field trip to the Science Museum. I signed the permission slip, noting that the emergency contact section now only had my name and my parents' information. After dinner, we settled in for a movie night. Halfway through, my security app alerted me to motion at the front door. The camera showed Lena's father placing something on the doorstep. I didn't retrieve it until after Mia was asleep. Inside the envelope were photos of Lena looking thin and distraught, along with a letter claiming she was suffering without her family. The manipulation was transparent, but effective. For a moment, doubt crept in. Then I remembered the security footage of Mia sitting hungry while Lena ate. I remembered the cavities, the weight loss, the fear in my daughter's eyes. I added the letter to my evidence file. Sleep eluded me again. I spent hours researching similar cases online, finding support groups for parents dealing with abusive ex-spouses. The stories were heartbreaking, but also encouraging. Others had survived this. We would too. Morning came too quickly. Over breakfast, Mia mentioned that she'd been having nightmares about Lena returning. I assured her that wouldn't happen, but made a mental note to discuss therapy with her pediatrician. She needed more support than I could provide alone. At work, I struggled to concentrate. My productivity had plummeted since this began. My supervisor called me in for a meeting. I braced for the worst, but instead found understanding. The company had an employee assistance program that could help with legal fees. The relief was overwhelming. During lunch, my lawyer called with a development. Lena had been spotted at several banks in town, trying to open new accounts using Mia's social security number. Each attempt had failed thanks to the fraud alerts we'd placed, but the pattern was concerning. Identity theft of a minor was a serious crime. I left work early to visit the police station. The detective assigned to our case took my statement and copies of the evidence. She mentioned that they'd been building a file on Lena, as this wasn't her first report. The restraining order violations alone could result in jail time. Picking up Mia from school, I noticed she seemed quieter than usual. In the car, she finally admitted that some kids had been asking questions about why her mom didn't pick her up anymore. She didn't know what to tell them. We spent the drive home discussing age-appropriate ways to handle the questions. That evening, while helping with math homework, my phone buzzed with an alert from the security system. Someone was in our backyard. I told Mia to stay put and check the cameras. A figure in dark clothing was near the shed. I called 911 immediately. The police arrived within minutes. They found Lena's brother trying to retrieve what he claimed were tools Lena had left behind. The shed had been locked, and he'd been attempting to break in. They arrested him for attempted burglary and violating the restraining order by proxy. Mia watched from her bedroom window as the police car pulled away. I found her there, trembling. We sat together on her bed while I explained that the police were helping keep us safe. She asked if we could get extra locks for the doors. I promised we would. The next few days blurred together. Legal meetings, documentation gathering, security upgrades. I installed new deadbolts, window locks, and motion sensor lights. The house began to feel like a fortress, but Mia said she felt safer. My lawyer had encouraging news. The bank had found evidence that Lena had been planning the theft for months. She'd made small test transfers first, checking if I'd notice. The premeditation strengthened our case significantly. Criminal charges were looking more likely. At Mia's dental appointment for her cavities, the dentist pulled me aside. He documented everything carefully, noting that the damage was consistent with prolonged nutritional neglect. His report would be crucial evidence. He also mentioned that Mia had asked him if her teeth would be okay, if she'd always have problems because of what happened. The question broke my heart again. On the way home, we stopped at the pet shelter as promised. Mia fell in love with a gentle golden retriever mix named Buddy. The dog seemed equally smitten with her. I filled out the adoption application, knowing that having a protective presence in the house would help us both feel safer. That night, Lena's harassment took a new turn. Our doorbell camera captured her friend Catherine leaving flyers on our doorstep and in the mailbox. The flyers claimed I was an abusive father who'd stolen a child from her loving mother. I collected them as evidence, but worried about what the neighbors might think. The next morning proved my concerns valid. Our elderly neighbor approached me as I retrieved the newspaper. She'd seen the flyers but didn't believe them. She'd witnessed too much, she said, remembering times she'd seen Mia looking hungry and scared. She offered to provide a statement if needed. More neighbors came forward throughout the week. The family across the street had security footage of Lena's mother attempting to enter our backyard. The couple next door had overheard Lena screaming at Mia months ago. The community support was unexpected but deeply appreciated. My parents arrived for a visit, bringing copies of every check they'd ever written for Mia's college fund. My mother had kept meticulous records, noting, "for Mia's education," on every single one. They also brought photo albums showing Mia's growth over the years, evidence of a loving family that Lena had tried to destroy. While my parents stayed with Mia, I met with a financial advisor. Even if we recovered the stolen funds, I needed a better plan to protect Mia's future. We set up a trust that no future spouse could access, with my parents as co-trustees. It felt like closing the barn door after the horse had bolted, but necessary nonetheless. The school called again. This time, someone had sent an anonymous letter making wild accusations about my parenting. The principal assured me they gave it no credence, but they were required to document it. The letter's phrasing was distinctly Lena's, though she tried to disguise her handwriting. That weekend, we were approved to adopt Buddy. Mia's joy was infectious as we brought him home. The dog immediately took to following her everywhere, a furry guardian. That first night, I found them curled up together on her bed, both finally sleeping peacefully. But peace was short-lived. Monday brought a process server to my door. Lena was claiming emotional distress and demanding damages. The irony of her claiming to be the victim while Mia still struggled with the trauma of starvation was staggering. My lawyer assured me this was a desperate move that wouldn't succeed. I took more time off work to handle the mounting legal issues. My boss remained supportive, but I knew there were limits. I started working from home when possible, keeping one eye on my laptop and another on the security cameras. Mia's teacher requested a conference. She'd noticed behavioral changes, particularly around lunchtime. Mia had been hoarding food, hiding sandwiches in her desk. The teacher handled it with incredible sensitivity, understanding the trauma behind the behavior. We developed a plan to help Mia feel secure about food availability. The criminal investigation progressed slowly. The detective called with updates, but building a solid case took time. They discovered that Lena had attempted to access Mia's medical records, trying to find something to use against me. Each violation added to the charges she'd eventually face. One evening, while making dinner, I heard Buddy barking furiously in the backyard. Through the window, I saw someone at the back gate. It was Lena's friend Sebastian, supposedly looking for his lost cat. Buddy's presence deterred him from entering, but the excuse was transparent. I added it to my log of incidents. Mia had started sleeping better with Buddy in her room, but she still struggled with anxiety. Her counselor recommended a child therapist who specialized in trauma. The first session was hard. Mia cried, reliving the hunger and fear, but the therapist was skilled, helping her process the experience in healthy ways. My lawyer called with significant news. The forensic accountant had traced the stolen money. Lena had moved it through several accounts, but most of it was still trackable. She'd spent about $5,000 on luxury items and a vacation, but the rest was recoverable if we could get the right court orders. The investigation revealed more disturbing details. Lena had been researching how to claim custody from out of state, looking into grandparents' rights for her parents, and even exploring international travel with a minor. Each search added to the evidence of her ongoing plans to interfere with our lives. I upgraded our security system again, adding cameras that covered every angle of the property. The expense was significant, but Mia's safety was worth any cost. She helped me test the system, taking comfort in knowing we could see anyone who approached. Her therapy sessions were showing progress. The therapist taught her coping strategies for anxiety and helped her understand that Lena's behavior wasn't her fault. Slowly, the guilt she'd been carrying began to lift. She even started talking about the future again, making plans for middle school and beyond. The pet shelter called to check on Buddy's adjustment. When I mentioned our situation, they revealed that Lena had actually tried to adopt a dog from them the week before, claiming she needed it for her daughter. They'd found it suspicious since she couldn't provide proper references. Another piece of evidence for our file. My financial situation grew tighter with each passing week. Legal fees, security upgrades, therapy costs, and the loss of work hours added up quickly. I started a spreadsheet, tracking every expense related to Lena's actions. My lawyer said we could seek reimbursement eventually, but that didn't help with current bills. Mia's birthday approached, and she asked for a simple celebration. Just family and her new best friend. No big party that might attract unwanted attention. The request showed a maturity beyond her years, forced by circumstances no child should face. My parents offered to help financially, but I hesitated to accept. They'd already done so much, and they were on a fixed income. But when my father pointed out that protecting their granddaughter was their priority too, I gratefully accepted their help with the legal fees. The restraining order violations continued to pile up. Lena seemed incapable of stopping herself. Her lawyer had apparently tried to counsel her against contact, but she persisted. Each violation strengthened our case and increased the likelihood of jail time. One morning, I woke to find our garbage cans overturned and trash scattered across the lawn. The security footage showed a figure in a hoodie, but the build was wrong for Lena. Later, we learned she'd paid a teenager from the neighborhood to do it, thinking it couldn't be traced back to her. The kid confessed when questioned by police. Mia's recovery continued its ups and downs. Some days were good, filled with laughter and normalcy. Others were harder, triggered by unexpected things like a certain smell or a phrase that reminded her of Lena. But the trajectory was positive overall. The school implemented additional security measures at my request. Only pre-approved individuals could pick up Mia, and the office staff had photos of Lena and her known associates. It felt extreme, but recent events had proven such precautions necessary. My lawyer filed a civil suit to recover the stolen funds plus damages. The evidence was overwhelming, from bank records to the forensic accountant's report. Lena's counterclaims fell apart under scrutiny. Her lawyer began hinting at a settlement, but I wasn't interested in negotiation. Mia deserved full restitution. The criminal case moved forward slowly but steadily. The prosecutor assigned to the case was thorough, building an airtight case for theft, identity fraud, and multiple restraining order violations. She warned me that Lena might try to plea bargain, but assured me that jail time was almost certain given the evidence. Buddy proved to be more than just a pet. He seemed to sense Mia's moods, staying close when she was anxious and playful when she needed distraction. The bond between them grew stronger each day. He even alerted us to nighttime visitors several times, his barking deterring whatever mischief was planned. I found a support group for single parents dealing with custody issues. The first meeting was emotional but helpful. Hearing others' stories, sharing our own, and learning coping strategies made me feel less alone. Several members had dealt with similar financial theft by ex-spouses. Mia's teacher sent home a progress report. Academically, she was excelling, throwing herself into schoolwork as a distraction. Socially, she was building friendships again, learning to trust. The food hoarding had stopped, replaced by a healthy relationship with meals and snacks. The investigation uncovered a final shocking detail. Lena had been in contact with a lawyer in another state, exploring options to file for custody there, where laws might be more favorable. The plan showed a level of calculation that chilled me. Fortunately, our lawyer assured me that jurisdiction was clear, and such a scheme would never succeed. As autumn approached, life had found a new rhythm. Morning walks with Buddy, school drop-offs with extra vigilance, work-from-home days balanced with legal appointments, evening homework sessions, and bedtime stories that helped chase away lingering fears. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but we were surviving. The financial pressure remained significant. Even with my parents' help, the costs were overwhelming. I sold my motorcycle, a beloved weekend toy, to cover therapy expenses. Mia noticed and apologized, as if any of this was her fault. I assured her that keeping her safe and healthy was worth any sacrifice. Her therapist recommended a gradual exposure technique to help with food-related anxiety. We started cooking together more, with Mia helping plan meals and prepare snacks. Having control over food preparation seemed to ease her fears about availability. She even started trying new recipes, showing creativity and confidence. The civil case reached a turning point when Lena's assets were frozen by court order. Her lawyer contacted mine, suddenly eager to discuss settlement. The theft was undeniable, and she faced both criminal charges and civil liability. The possibility of recovering Mia's college fund became real, but Lena's harassment continued through proxies. Her mother left voicemails at my work, her father sent letters to my parents, and her friends made social media posts full of lies about our situation. Each contact was documented, added to the ever-growing pile of evidence. Mia asked to visit her mother's grave for the first time since Lena entered our lives. We went on a quiet Sunday morning, bringing flowers and spending time talking to her. Mia told her mom about Buddy, about school, about how Dad was keeping her safe. The visit seemed to bring her peace. The criminal trial date was set for early winter. The prosecutor met with us to prepare, explaining what to expect, and assuring Mia that she wouldn't have to testify unless absolutely necessary. The evidence spoke for itself, particularly the security footage and financial records. As we prepared for the legal battles ahead, I reflected on how much had changed. The house that once felt like a prison had become a fortress of safety. The daughter who'd been starved and scared was healing and thriving. The future that had seemed stolen was slowly being reclaimed. But the fight wasn't over. Lena's determination to destroy our peace seemed boundless, and each day brought new challenges to overcome. Still, with every small victory, every moment of Mia's laughter, and every night she slept peacefully, I knew we were winning the war that really mattered. The prosecutor called early the next morning with urgent news. Lena had been arrested overnight after attempting to break into my parents' house. The security footage showed her trying to jimmy their back door at 2 a.m. My mother had heard the noise and called 911 immediately. The arrest meant immediate jail time for violating the restraining order. I drove to my parents' house with Mia and Buddy. My mother's hands shook as she showed me where Lena had damaged the door frame. My father had already called a locksmith to reinforce their security. Mia stayed close to me, processing that Lena had targeted her grandparents now. The detective handling our case met us there. She explained that with this arrest, Lena would be held without bail until the criminal trial. The pattern of escalating harassment and the attempted break-in demonstrated she posed a genuine threat. Relief washed over me, knowing we'd have at least temporary peace. Back home, I found 17 missed calls from Lena's parents. I didn't return them. Instead, I forwarded the call log to my lawyer as evidence of continued harassment. He texted back immediately, confirming he'd add it to our file. That afternoon brought unexpected progress. The forensic accountant had located more of the stolen money. Lena had hidden $12,000 in an account under her maiden name, thinking we wouldn't check there. With the court order now in place, those funds were frozen immediately. Mia's therapy session that day focused on processing the news of Lena's arrest. The therapist helped her understand that feeling both relieved and scared was normal. They worked on breathing exercises to manage anxiety when thoughts of Lena surfaced. While Mia was in therapy, I met with the prosecutor in the courthouse cafeteria. She laid out the charges: theft over $20,000, identity fraud, multiple restraining order violations, and now attempted breaking and entering. The evidence was overwhelming. She expected Lena to face 2 to 5 years in prison. The financial recovery process accelerated with Lena in custody. Her lawyer, realizing the criminal case was unwinnable, pushed for a quick civil settlement. My lawyer countered with full restitution plus damages for therapy costs, security expenses, and lost wages. The negotiations moved faster than expected. 3 days after Lena's arrest, her parents appeared at Mia's school. The principal called me immediately. They'd tried to convince the office staff they had permission to see their granddaughter. The school's security protocols held firm. Police escorted them off the property with a warning about trespassing. I picked up Mia early that day, explaining what had happened in simple terms. She asked if Lena's parents would try to take her away. I assured her that would never happen, that the law protected her. We stopped for ice cream on the way home, a small normalcy in the chaos. The next morning, my lawyer called with good news. Lena's attorney had agreed to full restitution of the stolen college fund. The money would be transferred to the new trust account within 5 business days. Additionally, they'd pay $30,000 in damages to cover our expenses and suffering. I sat at the kitchen table, calculator in hand, hardly believing it. Not only would Mia's college fund be restored, but the additional money would cover all the debt I'd accumulated protecting her. The relief was overwhelming, though I kept my expression neutral when Mia walked in for breakfast. Catherine, Lena's friend who'd distributed the flyers, was charged with harassment and defamation. She pled guilty immediately, accepting community service and a restraining order rather than face trial. One by one, Lena's network of enablers faced consequences for their actions. The criminal trial date arrived faster than expected. Lena's public defender had advised her to plead guilty in exchange for a lighter sentence. But Lena, in her arrogance, insisted on a trial. She believed she could convince a jury that withholding food was acceptable discipline. I attended every day of the trial, my parents watching Mia. The prosecution presented the security footage, bank records, medical reports documenting Mia's malnutrition, and testimony from neighbors who'd witnessed Lena's behavior. The evidence was damning and methodical. Lena took the stand against her lawyer's advice. She tried to paint herself as a strict but loving stepmother, claiming I'd exaggerated everything. The prosecutor systematically destroyed her testimony, presenting evidence that contradicted every claim. Lena's composure cracked, and she began ranting about ungrateful children and weak parents. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours, guilty on all counts. The judge scheduled sentencing for the following month, but made it clear that prison time was certain. Lena's parents stormed out of the courtroom. Her mother glared at me with pure hatred, but said nothing. That evening, Mia asked about the trial. I explained that Lena had been found guilty and would go to prison. She nodded solemnly, then asked if we could make cookies. We spent the evening baking, Buddy hoping for dropped chocolate chips, the house filled with warmth and the smell of fresh cookies. The money from the settlement arrived as promised. I immediately deposited it into Mia's trust account, now protected by multiple safeguards. The financial advisor helped me set up automatic monthly contributions to rebuild it even further. Mia's future was secure again. Sentencing day arrived with unexpected drama. Lena's parents had hired a new lawyer, trying to argue for probation instead of prison. They'd gathered character letters from friends who'd never witnessed her behavior with Mia. The judge read each one, his expression growing darker. When it came time for victim impact statements, I spoke about finding my daughter starving while Lena ate feast-sized meals. I described the cavities, the therapy bills, the fear in Mia's eyes. I kept my voice steady, focusing on facts rather than emotion. The courtroom was silent when I finished. The judge sentenced Lena to 3 years in state prison, with possibility of parole after 18 months. He also ordered lifetime restraining orders protecting both Mia and me. Lena would never be allowed contact with us again. She screamed obscenities as bailiffs led her away in handcuffs. Outside the courthouse, Lena's father approached me. I tensed, ready to call for security, but his shoulders were slumped, defeat written across his face. He handed me an envelope, mumbled an apology, and walked away. Inside was a check for $5,000 and a note for Mia's therapy. We're sorry. The following weeks brought a peace we hadn't known in months. No more checking security cameras obsessively. No more jumping at unexpected sounds. Mia started sleeping through the night without nightmares. Buddy settled into a calmer routine, no longer constantly on guard. Mia's grades improved dramatically once the stress lifted. Her teacher sent home glowing reports about her participation and creativity. She joined the school's art club, making friends who knew nothing about our ordeal. Normal childhood experiences were returning. I returned to work full-time, my productivity rebounding. My boss noted the change, joking that I seemed like a different person. The employee assistance program had covered more legal fees than expected, leaving us in better financial shape than I'd dared hope. The house felt different now, lighter somehow. I removed the extra locks, keeping basic security but no longer living in a fortress. Mia helped me redecorate, choosing bright colors for spaces that had felt dark during Lena's reign of terror. My parents visited more frequently, their own anxiety easing with Lena imprisoned. They spoiled Mia appropriately, making up for birthdays and holidays that had been tainted by fear. Family dinners became regular events, filled with laughter instead of tension. Sebastian, who'd pretended to look for his cat, was arrested for filing false police reports in an unrelated case. During questioning, he admitted Lena had paid him to surveil our house. His confession added another conviction to her record, extending her minimum sentence. Mia's therapy sessions spaced out to bi-weekly, then monthly. Her therapist marveled at her resilience, noting that having a stable, protective parent made all the difference. The food hoarding had completely stopped. She ate regular meals without anxiety, even asking for seconds sometimes. One afternoon, while organizing paperwork to file away, I found the stack of evidence we'd compiled. Photos, bank statements, medical records, a chronicle of horror that felt distant now. I boxed it all up, storing it in the garage. We didn't need those reminders in our daily life anymore. The school removed the extra security protocols as months passed without incident. Mia could be picked up by her grandparents or her friends' parents for playdates. Normal permissions for a normal kid. The principal commented on how much happier she seemed. Buddy remained Mia's constant companion, but his role shifted from guardian to playmate. They ran in the backyard, played fetch, practiced tricks. His protective instincts remained, but tempered by the knowledge that the threat had passed. I started dating again, cautiously. A fellow single parent from Mia's school, someone who understood the priority children took. Mia liked her, especially since she had a daughter Mia's age. We took things slowly, both of us carrying scars from past relationships. The college fund grew steadily. Between the restored money, the settlement, and regular contributions, it exceeded its original amount. I showed Mia the balance, explaining that her future was secure. She hugged me tightly, whispering thanks for keeping her safe. As Lena's first parole hearing approached, the prosecutor contacted me. With her prison disciplinary record, early release was unlikely. She'd been in multiple altercations, refusing to accept responsibility for her actions. The parole board would receive our impact statements and the full trial record. Mia chose not to write a statement, and I supported that decision. She was moving forward, not looking back. Instead, she focused on her art project for the school showcase, a colorful painting of our family, including Buddy and my parents. The parole denial came swiftly. Lena would serve her full sentence. Her parents had stopped trying to contact us after their apology. I heard through the legal grapevine that they'd moved out of state, perhaps seeking distance from their daughter's crimes. Spring arrived with new beginnings. Mia performed in the school talent show, singing confidently in front of hundreds of people. The same child who'd been too scared to speak up about being starved now commanded a stage. I recorded every second, tears streaming down my face. We took that beach vacation we'd dreamed about. Mia built sandcastles, swam in the ocean, ate ice cream for breakfast one day, just because she could. The photos from that trip showed a healthy, happy child, so different from the pale, thin girl I'd found on the couch that terrible day. As summer approached, we prepared for middle school transitions. Mia was excited but nervous, normal preteen feelings. We toured the school together, met her teachers, bought supplies. Each milestone felt like a victory after everything we'd survived. The anniversary of discovering Lena's abuse passed quietly. I'd worried about triggering memories, but Mia didn't mention it. She was too busy planning a sleepover with her friends, arguing about movie choices and pizza toppings. Beautiful, normal kid problems. My relationship grew serious enough to introduce her formally as my girlfriend. Mia approved, especially since it meant more frequent playdates with her daughter. We talked about future possibilities but took things one day at a time, building trust slowly. The house was full of life again. Friends visited regularly. Mia's artwork covered the walls. Buddy's toys littered the floor. The security cameras remained but rarely checked, gathering dust rather than obsessive attention. One evening, as I tucked Mia into bed, she told me she felt safe now, completely safe. The words hit me harder than any verdict or settlement. This was what mattered, not the money recovered or the justice served, but this child's ability to sleep peacefully in her own home. I sat on the porch afterward, Buddy at my feet, reflecting on our journey. From discovering the abuse to achieving justice had taken over a year. The financial recovery, the legal battles, the therapy, all of it had been worth it for this moment of peace. Mia was thriving. Her confidence had returned. She ate without fear, laughed without reservation, and trusted that tomorrow would be better than yesterday. The college fund would ensure her dreams remained possible. More importantly, she knew she was loved, protected, and valued. Our story wasn't unique. Too many children suffer at the hands of those meant to protect them. But we'd fought back, used the system as intended, and won. Not a fairy tale ending, but a real one. Messy, complicated, sometimes painful, but ultimately hopeful. Life continued with its normal rhythms. School days, work deadlines, weekend adventures. We adopted a second dog, a little terrier who made Buddy seem calm by comparison. Mia named her Hope, a fitting addition to our rebuilt family. The future stretched ahead, full of possibility. High school, college, career, all the normal milestones awaiting. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. The worst was behind us. We'd survived, thrived even, and in the end, that was everything.